Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 889B, and today's date is February 9th, 2016, and the title of the episode is, As the Entire Economic System Crashes, We Will See the Spread of Tyrannical Governments. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded an interview with Andy Hoffman on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel, so you can go right over to that channel and you can view the video, or you can come over to the x22report.com site, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side, you'll see the video there, or you can go to newssentinel.com, that's newssentinel.com, scroll down a little bit, look over to the right-hand side, you'll see the video there. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the governments and the World Health Organization, the CDC, they're continually telling us that the Zika virus is on the move, it's spreading, it causes microcephaly, which there's no correlation to that whatsoever. And they're trying to push this agenda very, very hard. We hear Obama is already trying to put together a $1.8 billion plan to fight the Zika virus. And we see already the CDC, they've raised their response level to level 1 activation. And basically what this is the highest level of response reserved for critical emergencies. CDC assigns the largest number of staff possible to work 24/7 on the response. To date, there have been 3 level 1 responses. The Ebola outbreak of 2014, and we saw how that went. It didn't happen. H1N1, the influenza outbreak in 2009, again, another dud. And Hurricane Katrina, where the government really didn't help out until much, much later. So their track record is not that great at this point. And we can see that the Zika virus is being used for many different agendas. And they're going to continually push this. I'm just waiting for the CDC to come out with their projections to let us know how many people are going to be infected in the next couple of months. And we know they're going to come out with these numbers because they're waiting for the spring. They'll come out with the numbers. This way they'll be able to push vaccines. Obama will get his money. It will go to the pharmaceutical companies. They'll push the agenda in South America. And we can see at this point in time that they're pushing this quite hard. And whenever a government or organizations like the CDC, World Health Organization, push something so hard, it tells us that this was planned, created for a certain agenda. Now, the NSA outlined a reorganization that will consolidate its spying and domestic cybersecurity operations. Under this new plan, what they're going to do is they're going to combine the offensive and defensive hacking operations. Ignoring the recommendation, the Obama administration will replace its separate spying and cyber defense directorates with a unified organization responsible for both espionage and helping defend U.S. computer networks. This is so he can control what is going on right now. Now, Mike Rogers, the NSA director, he is saying that this new structure will enable the NSA to consolidate capabilities and talents to ensure that we're using all our resources to maximum effect to accomplish our mission. And we see at this point, the government, they want full control of the ability to attack other nations, or maybe create a false flag type of situation to make it look like another country attacked the U.S. Now, out in France, we see something terrible has happened. The rights of the people have completely been stripped away. And this is going to spread to other countries. It's almost like the test case in Cyprus when they did the bail-in. And after that, they came up with documents, and all the other countries around the world, most of them, created the same exact document. And what we're seeing in France right now, the lower house of the French Parliament, they voted in favor of enshrining in the Constitution the process of declaring a state of national emergency. So what does this do? Well, it gives the state increased security powers. The law change appears to give permanent status to police and security forces, sweeping powers to do what? To raid homes, hold people under house arrest, without any type of judicial oversight. And the government right now, their overreach, which was temporary before, it has now become permanent. What are we seeing? We're seeing tyrannical governments being born. Laws written in their favor. Laws written away from supporting the people to coming down hard on the people. France was a test case. Now we're going to see it spread to other countries. Just like we saw in Cyprus, the bail-in was a test case. The bail-in document was created back in 2012. 2013, we saw the bail-in. And that spread to all other countries to get prepared for what is coming. They wanted to see how the people were going to react in France. Yes, there were protests, but they weren't big enough. They weren't large enough to say, no, we as a people do not accept this. And now this model will be used in other countries. And we will see the laws change in other countries, and it will spread. I mean, basically what's happening is that these governments, they realize this entire system is coming crashing down. The economic structure that we've known for many, many years is disappearing. People are going to become desperate. We're going to see riots. And this is why they are pushing their agenda. This will enable them to control. This will enable them to go into anyone's homes. This will enable them to arrest people. And guess what? There will be nothing to stop them. And as things get worse and worse, we'll see more of the government coming down on the people. Already in the U.S., we hear they're creating a special group, a special force to handle anti-government extremists. And they're using Oregon as the test to say, yes, this is what we can expect. These are the type of people. So I guess the Founding Fathers, if they were here today, they would be an anti-government extremist group. And they'd be thrown into prison by the government they created. Very scary. North Korea, it is confirmed that they launched a satellite. It is now orbiting and it's stabilized around the Earth. But don't worry, even though that was a satellite launch, the U.S. is going to spend $800 million in South Korea bringing in weapon systems, almost $1 billion. Propaganda. North Korea's launch of a satellite is just that. The hydrogen bomb that they said went off underground, they never had any proof. Actually, Japan, Russia never picked up any radiation whatsoever. There has been no proof whatsoever. It's all propaganda to push their agenda. And we can see already they're getting ready to set up the missile shield system in South Korea. And is this really pointing to North Korea? Yeah, maybe some of them, but or is it pointing towards China? Just like the missiles in Eastern Europe. They said it was for Iran, but now they have the P5+1 peace talks, and Russia is calling Obama out saying, why is the missile system still there? The peace talks are over. The sanctions are being lifted. There's no reason for them. And then you come to learn that, they're pointing towards Russia. They were never for Iran. The same thing in South Korea. They wanted that in place because they're encircling China. Now, out in Ukraine, we see Ukrainian forces. They are continually shelling the People's Militia of the self-proclaimed Lugansk people. They're continually doing it. They have not stopped. And we're seeing at this point that Kiev has not fulfilled the Minsk agreements whatsoever. Now, it's been extended a little while longer, and France and Germany, who were involved with Russia, they should be putting pressure on Kiev at this point to say, you know something? You've had all of this time. It is now it's time to follow through, and it's time to adhere to the Minsk agreements. But it seems like they're not doing this. And no one is holding Kiev accountable. If you only hold one side accountable and not the other, guess what? It cannot work. And this is what we're seeing in Ukraine. You know why? Because they don't want it to work. Because they're getting ready and prepared to go in and take back these regions. NATO is still in Ukraine training the soldiers inside of Kiev. They're getting them ready and prepared. NATO right now is going to send more forces to the east to face the Russian threat. But there is no Russian threat. This is all propaganda. It is completely made up. We see U.S. Marines. They are deploying to the Pacific and to the Middle East. More than 4,500 sailors and Marines from the San Diego-based Boxer Amphibious Ready Group and the 13th Marine Expeditionary Unit are scheduled to deploy Friday to the Western Pacific and the Middle East. And these ships are the USS Boxer, which is the amphibious assault ship, the USS New Orleans, and the USS Harper's Ferry. These vessels were last deployed in August of 2013, and they returned in April. What happened in August of 2013? Yes, that was the sarin gas false flag, and now they're being sent once again to these areas. Very interesting. So we can definitely expect to see something happen in these areas because these ships are being deployed. We understand they're having drills in Jordan. Military assets are being shipped over there. We're seeing the same exact run-up that we saw back in August of 2013, July and August of 2014, and here we are now in 2016. We're seeing the same exact thing. Now, Russia is out there. They are saying they are ready to support the UNSC of the lifting of the arms embargo from Libya as soon as they have a working government in Libya. Because right now, the puppet government wants the arms embargo lifted, and that is not the government of Libya. And right now, Russia is holding off, waiting for a government. Now, there is an elected government in Tripoli, but there is a lot of confusion right now because we have the puppet government, the unity government, and the elected government in Libya. And we see right now that they're continually trying to make the case. UK Prime Minister David Cameron, he has warned that the Islamic State will not be defeated in Libya unless the country has a coherent government, a unity government. Because, as we know, once that unity government is formed, they want the coalition forces to come in to remove those people who are opposed to the unity government. They want the Tripoli government removed and taken away. They're not going after the Islamic State. This is about reestablishing dominance over Libya once again. And this is where they are pushing, and they're going to push hard. And if the unity government is not put into power, they're going to make some type of case of why they need to go into Libya. And this is what we're seeing. This is why Obama is speaking to the president of Italy. This is why the coalition forces are getting ready and prepared. They're getting ready to go into Libya. Everything is falling into place. We have the amphibious ships coming. We have the 4,500 Marines coming. We see the training happening in Jordan. It is all happening once again. We see out in Turkey, we see people are protesting. The police are out there. They are firing tear gas. And things are completely falling apart in Turkey, the Middle East. But Turkey is pushing the idea that they're going to see a new influx of 600,000 refugees because of what's happening in Syria. Now, where did they get this number of 600,000? It's kind of a mystery. They just made it up out of thin air. And what we're seeing right now is Jay Johnson is over at Turkey. They're setting up balloons to monitor the border. They have all this electronic equipment. They're building a barrier between Syria and Turkey. It's amazing how much money they can spend, billions and billions of dollars, have Jay Johnson over there, but we can't protect our borders here in the United States. Amazing to me. And the reason why this is all happening out there is they're going to use this refugee crisis as the initiator of starting a war. Now, of course, they're going to say, well, there's so many refugees coming in, we're going to need a safe zone. We're not going to let them in. We're going to close it down. And we're going to have to create a safe zone so they have some place to go, because we can't let them in to our country anymore. We're filled up here. And we can see how they can use this as a pretext to start the war. And we're going to have to watch that situation very, very carefully, because as we know, Saudi Arabia, coalition forces, they're all bringing in ground troops. We know the U.S. has commandeered a base inside of Syria. They're extending it. They're bringing C-130 transport planes into the area. Things are really starting to ramp up right now. The French media right now is using Russian footage, just like the U.S. did in the news show PBS, because the U.S., France, and all the other coalition forces, they have no footage showing that they're bombing the Islamic State. Because if they ever showed the footage, it would show that they're bombing the infrastructure of Syria. This is why they never show the footage. This is why they need to use Russia's footage, because they're actually hitting the Islamic State. And they were using this, and they were using it as their own. Again, complete propaganda. And they're trying to keep the illusion alive that they're actually fighting the Islamic State, which they are not. John Kerry right now, they're blaming everyone for what is going on in Syria except for themselves. They're blaming the opposition. They're blaming the terrorists. They're blaming anyone they possibly can of why the peace talks failed, why things are happening. What's really happening there is Russia, Syria, they're making a push into Aleppo. They are pushing the Islamic State back. They're completely defeated. And the United States is running out of time. This is why Kerry is out there right now saying that they need immediate ceasefire in Syria. We need everyone just to stop. Well, the only reason they're saying this is because Russia and Syria, they have the upper hand right now. The proxy army of the United States, they're being pushed out of Syria. Turkey has lost their oil convoys coming into their country where they can fund the Islamic State. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, the United States airlifted a lot of the Islamic State soldiers out and moved them into Libya. And we can see right now, Russia and Syria, they have the upper hand. Russia is out there saying that they might have a plan to have peace, to stop the civil war in Syria. They've proposed this to the United States, and they're waiting to hear the United States' response. Well, we'll have to wait to hear what they say. I cannot believe at this point that they're just going to say, okay, we give, because they can't give. They need to follow through, because everything they said in the past, 5 years, it would be considered a lie. Everything they told us, Assad is a dictator, Assad is using chemical weapons on his own people, but we're going to let him stay in power and we're just going to leave and that's it. No, they will not do this. We see already that coming out of the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency, the director is saying, yeah, it looks like the Syrian government is not going to fall. It looks like they're stronger now because of Russia. And right now, it looks like we cannot defeat him. This is coming from Lieutenant Colonel Vincent Stewart. And he's right. At this point, they have no way of defeating Assad. Assad has taken his country back, and they're continually doing it. And this puts the United States in a very tough position. What do? Well, we know that the U.S. Secretary of Defense Ashton Carter is going throughout Europe to the 65-nation alliance. Doesn't mean that all 65 are helping out in the coalition. I think only about 26 are actually helping. He's saying, you need to do more. You need to help us. And we are looking for contributions because they don't have the authorization for war, so they can't bring the full military might of the U.S. into Syria. So they need help from the other countries. And he's saying, listen, we need additional combat aircraft. We need intelligence. We need refuelers. We need ground troops. We need all these countries to chip in now. And most of the countries saying, we might want to sit this one out because Russia is doing a fine job in there and there's no reason for us to be in there right now. And this is why I'm saying most likely they will push this event because their backs are against the wall. They have no other place to turn. We know that Saudi Arabia is saying, listen, we will be part of the ground troops. We will help. We will go into Iraq. We will go into Syria. We will be the proxy force for the United States. Well, look how well that's turning out in Yemen. They can't even defeat the Houthis. Now, they are a strong fighting force. But think about it. They have all these advanced weapons from the United States. They have the backing of the United States and the UK, and they cannot defeat the Houthis in Yemen. They thought they would just go in there, they wipe them out, they reinstall the puppet government. And how long has this been going on? Almost a year. And they're getting absolutely nowhere. The U.S. is requesting NATO to supply AWACS to fight against the Islamic State. This will help them in Iraq and Syria, most likely Libya also. And we can see they're getting ready for something very big. All the indicators that we're looking at right now point to this, even though the government is telling us, no, we want peace, we want a ceasefire, we don't want any of this. They're planning things covertly in the background. Look at their actions, not what they're saying. Now, the Islamic State is taking credit for the car bomb in the Saudi capital, and the Saudi Arabia is going to use this to say we need to go after the Islamic State. You can see how all these things are fitting together now. We see the director, Lieutenant General Vincent Stewart, is testifying that the Islamic State will attempt direct attacks on the U.S. in 2016. Now, of course, he's in front of Congress because he needs funding, so they need to scare everyone. But we know this is not going to be from the Islamic State. We know that the attacks are going to come from the inside. They will be false flags. Right now, there's absolutely no evidence. There's nothing that shows that the Islamic State is going to attack, but they're just saying it to get the funding. And we can see at this point that as the U.S. prepares and gets ready to go into Syria, they're going to need to make a case of why they're doing this. Russia is already defeating the Islamic State. What is the purpose of the coalition forces to go into Syria right now? There's none right now. They shouldn't be there in the first place. They weren't invited into the country. And this is what we need to look at. We need to look at How is the U.S. going to convince the people of the United States, the world, that they need to go into Syria and they need to bring ground troops into this area? And the only way that I can think of this is some type of an event, something horrific happening to scare the people into doing something they would normally wouldn't do. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.